Today on the 1% Project, I'm with Chris Cotillo. Chris, how do you introduce yourself when people ask you what you do?
Basically just an MLB reporter and managing editor for MLBDailyDish.com and SB Nation on the SB Nation network. And hopefully we'll be able to say that I work in baseball for a long time from here on out.
I love it. I love that you use the word basically there because as a college student, most people are saying student, and you said basically an MLB reporter. So that's really the reason you're on. And I want to start the conversation with a confession. I'm not fascinated by MLB rumors. I'm into the habits that led you to where you are. So if you were telling people what is it about the rumor mill, the news mill that makes it important to you, how would you answer that question?
It's an interesting one because I think, a lot of fans and people who just watch baseball casually kind of see what goes on in the field and they don't realize, well, I think people do realize now, but haven't always realized the insane business that goes on behind the scenes of all the wheeling and dealing. It's just a crazy, crazy world out there, the way teams look to attack their rosters and try to make changes and really try to do things to better their on-field product. There's a lot of different steps to negotiations, and it's a huge multi-billion-dollar business that I've always been fascinated with.
I listened to Eric Roseberry on Baseball Writing's interview with you, and I want to give him a little love. I never met the man, but he did a nice job in the interview giving your whole backstory. So I want to direct people there to go ahead and listen to kind of how you got started and everything like that. But the nutshell version appears to be that you broke some major news when you're 18, and that's kind of propelled you. But from there now, you must have done a series of things to keep yourself relevant. What types of things have you done that have led to continued success now that you're 21 years old?
I think for me, it's been really just staying consistent with my thresholds for reporting things. Like I'm always hearing things all the time from different people, like this may be happening. And I think when I was back in high school and not really knowing all the ins and outs of this industry, I might have ran with some of those things and been a little bit more risky with what I put out there. But now I confirm with multiple sources. And if that means getting beat on a story or getting something second instead of first, which is a huge distinction and something that's very important in this business, then I'm going to lose the story. I'd always rather be right instead of being first. I think that's the most important thing for people trying to get into journalism nowadays, especially with this fake news outbreak and everything like that. And I think just to stay relevant, being able to just show myself to the Major League Baseball fan base as a credible source for news and one that they can trust, a place that they can go and find out what's going on with their favorite team, showing a little bit of personality and trying to interact with the fans, staying professional, but also showing that, yeah, I am a college student. If I'm going to tweet about UNC basketball or what's going on in my life, I think people are going to appreciate that as well. So not being too robotic, but definitely being professional. I think those are the keys.
Love it. And you feel like your age works for you or against you at this point in your career?
I think it's worked against me a little bit at times. I think there's just because these relationships that are with people in baseball, such as general managers and agents, my competitors are in their 50s for the most part and a couple in their 30s and 40s. So they've had a lot more time to build these relationships. And usually the sources kind of determine who's going to be their guy that they give stories to. And for a lot of guys, they're starting to make me their guy, which is very much appreciated and something I couldn't have imagined when I started this out. But it's obviously really hard to break in when you have all those relationships that are kind of intact already with your competitors. But I think, people do really respect my age when I'm talking about this stuff and doing this stuff because they're really admiring the initiative and remembering back when they were 20, 21 and had a dream and had a career that they wanted to pursue and remembering the people that helped them and kind of a pay it forward kind of thing. So I think it's kind of gone both ways.
You teed me up with a couple of good things there, competition and initiative. What do you say to the college student that forget about breaking into your business, but you get a lot of people. I've once heard, for instance, you can get proper sleep, you can have a social life, you can get good grades, but you can't do all three. How are you managing to try to do all three and squeeze in Major League Baseball reporting?
I kind of take it day by day, second by second. If there's a story that breaks in the middle of class, it's very important and important for my career, then I'm probably not going to hear what's going on in the lecture that day. I think it's really important. I mean, as a journalism major, I don't think there's a better way to learn than actively doing it and doing it at a high level or trying at least with a great site and a great company like SB Nation. So I think just doing things like that and, realizing that not getting too stressed out about any certain aspect, I think, is really important, whether it be school or work or social life or anything. Just trying to balance everything. And I'm lucky because my job doesn't require me to sit at a desk from 9 to 5 any certain day and do that and have to schedule out hours where I'm going to do work or do things while I'm supposed to be in school. I can do it wherever I am from my phone, from a laptop that I have in class, or some days I'll be working on schoolwork for a while, say, all right, let me take a little break from that, do some work stuff for a bit, still have a good social life at UNC. So I think it's all about balancing things, but I really don't stick to that strict schedule of when I'm going to do certain things, just basically taking it as it comes and trying to do everything on its own.
Love it. And I know when we're talking, you're on break from college right now, but what would a typical Tuesday at UNC look like for you to mix in some of the reporting stuff as well?
Well, Tuesday's one of my busier school classes, or school days, at least for last semester. My first class was at 11 and had 3 in a row that were an hour and a half each. So just basically in class all day, but those are all journalism classes where the teachers and professors kind of know what I'm doing, are fine with me being on my laptop, and they know if my eyes wander from the notes a little bit, it's probably going to be because I'm doing something work related that I have a responsibility to SB Nation, and it's obviously extremely good for my education to be able to do that. But basically just, throughout the day, whatever happens in the baseball world, I'm going to be covering, trying to break it first, texting, writing stories, controlling the site, working with some writers that work for us on the site, giving them assignments, and then get home, relax at the apartment, do some homework, do some schoolwork, watch sports as much as I can. Hopefully, UNC basketball will be on that certain Tuesday night, and hopefully we played a little bit better than we did against Kentucky the other day. But it's just, as I said, whatever comes, I tackle it, and I really try not to get too stressed about any part of it.
I love it. There's something good in there that I wonder if you had to have conversations with your professors. Sometimes it's tough for a student to have a conversation where they have to advocate for themselves while still being respectful of the expertise of the professor. Can you recall any specific conversations you had with any of your doctors or professors?
I think it's really interesting because I kind of try to gauge it early on in the semester to see, is this person going to be A, laid back, and B, a sports or baseball fan? And I think those two things, tied together are usually what allows me to be able to do my job. The really interesting distinction I make at that point is if they are pretty laid back and if they are, seem to be a baseball fan and would understand, I go up to them and kind of explain. And if I don't feel that way, then I'm probably not going to approach them about being able to do my job, because at that point you ask to say, hey, I have this job, I need to be using my phone or being on my laptop. And if they're not okay with it, then the alarms kind of go off while they'll be watching for it and potentially trying to get me in trouble later on in the semester. So I really kind of try to gauge that. But I would say in general, especially in the journalism school, it's a bunch of former journalists who are now professors, and they're completely understanding of what it takes to get into the industry, and that I'm trying to work at a high level at this point, and they respect that. So it's been pretty much all good in school so far.
Interesting. So you use the phrase gauge it, which what you really mean, I think, is read people. And that's got to be an important part of your profession. If you were going to help people to think about how to relate to other human beings and how to do that, that's a key part of your job. What's your secret sauce in dealing with the people that you're looking to get sources from?
Well, I think it's really bringing something unique to the table. And I know that there's a lot of people who have tried to break in due to the advent of social media in the last couple of years. And a lot of people have really tried to break in and just kind of send an email where they copy and paste the same paragraph to 100 agents and a bunch of general managers. And I understand that, and that kind of just blanketing. But I really think that there is a great value in trying to come at every single interaction with a unique angle, know something about the person going in. So if there's a general manager who went to an ACC school and let's say they beat UNC in basketball last year, I'm going to say, hey, we'll get you next time, whatever. My name's Chris Cotillo. I go to UNC. I'm a big fan. I'm sorry that we lost to you guys. Give them something that will catch their attention, because I think something that really is useful being a college student, everybody is really proud of where they went to school in general, and everyone really cares about that. So I think that's a unique angle. Or where someone's from, oh, you're from this area. Oh, my roommate's from there. Do you know this area specifically? You just kind of get in the door that way with a specific angle, something unique to talk to them about, and from there get down to business, and that's how you really start forming those relationships.
Wow. So it's something pretty simple. I mean, that's kind of what this show is all about, right? It's a tactic and a strategy or a mindset. And you're saying that, just basically being a considerate, alive human being and trying to angle in a way that kind of connects you to them.
Right. As I said, it's really hard to break in with all these other competitors who have been doing this for 30 years. But I think it's not just, in a lot of cases, a business relationship. These are people that I see, especially once a year at the winter meetings that I'm talking to throughout the year. And you get to know these people, and it's impossible not to have a personal relationship with them. So you're rooting for their success on the field in terms of agents, their clients' success on the field, with teams, their team success, and not just because it's going to help you professionally to see them successful, but just because you care about these people. So I think it really is important to be personal with people. And I think a really important part of that is to not ever look at anyone as unapproachable. I think I talked to a lot of job seekers at the winter meetings a couple weeks ago in D.C., and there was a lot of people that were coming up to me and saying, you've broken into this at 20. I'm looking to get into things on the baseball operations side of things, or I'm looking to become, a PR person. How do I get in? And I said, you're literally in a hotel with every person who could ever hire you in the entire baseball industry. Don't be afraid to go up to anyone. You recognize someone, you see their name tag, go up and shake their hand. Use one of those tools that I just mentioned, bringing something up that is going to make a personalized conversation, and you never know where those interactions are going to end up. So I always, sometimes I'll be looking, should I email this person? Should I not? Do I want to bother them? I think the worst thing that can happen is they say no comment, or I don't get a response. And at that point, then I either move on or take a long break before I contact them again on something. I think it's really important to just think the worst thing that could possibly happen is them saying no, and people really respect that initiative and that persistence.
Are you that fearless in approaching new relationships in your personal life?
I try to be as social as possible at school, I would say. I think UNC I thought of as a big school heading in, and after 2.5 years, I've realized that it's really a tight-knit community where everyone kind of knows everyone knows what's going on. So I try to be, in that way, very active socially and knowing a lot of people and making connections and stuff like that, just because, I'm just a kind of a sociable person in general. So I would say yes. What's
a very popular question you maybe get tired of being asked when someone approaches you in a restaurant or so?
I wouldn't think that I'm not notable enough to be, approached like that. I wouldn't say, but
really, even from classmates.
I mean, there's people that know what I do just because they follow me and they see that I'm covering different things and I'm at ballparks all the time and they follow me on Twitter or whatever. But I think a lot of times I've made friendships from kids at school coming up and saying, I'm a huge Braves fan. What are the Braves doing? And I'll say, well, this, and this, or whatever. There's a lot of Braves fans, obviously, in North Carolina, but I wouldn't say that my job dictates my social life at all. I think, it's a lot of times I'll be good friends with a person, and then after a couple months, I'll say, I didn't realize that you worked as a reporter. Like, yeah, that's, it's something, but it's not, I don't come at them with, I'm an MLB reporter, and that's why you should be friends with me. It's definitely been a gateway to relationships with baseball fans at school, but never my main focus when I'm out and meeting people.
Love it. So big part of your job is getting sources, and then you have to go back and write the story. What are your secrets to success or tips that you would give to writers?
I think that's tough. I think it's something that, people just sometimes pigeonhole themselves as, I'm a bad writer, and that isn't, I'm never going to be able to do this. Well, it's a craft that you can learn. I think there's a lot of different things you can do, and just learning the language and really knowing what words to use and how to sound articulate and really sound good in writing, I think is very important. I think people shouldn't ever think of themselves as bad writers because, as I said, it's a craft that you can constantly try to hone. And in today's age, there are literally unlimited places where you can write. So if you have interest in that, if you have interest in writing for public consumption, start a WordPress account, start a blog spot, because you never know, like I wouldn't have known that starting a Twitter that I would have grown from, one follower and myself to now having almost 40,000 Twitter followers and having thousands and thousands of readers on the site every day. You never know where things are going to take off. If you have good information or a good opinion or there's a good voice or something like that, people are going to notice. So it's really important to again, be just absolutely fearless with that kind of stuff.
We're talking with Chris Cotillo, managing editor, SB Nation, MLB Daily Dish. Where would you like to improve in your craft?
I think I'm very competitive, so losing stories, and obviously losing stories like I do to Ken Rosenthal and John Heyman and Jeff Passan, the guys that have been doing this much longer than me at bigger websites. I think you're just continuing to build sources, and then obviously down the road when I have more time and I can do this full time, just becoming a more well-rounded journalist, working on features and profiles and stuff like that. Just being able to tell stories that aren't just the breaking news snippets that I write on the site all day long. There's a lot of really great stories out there to be told, and once I have the access and the time to do it after school, I look forward to that.
What percentage of your schooling or your writing is non-baseball related?
I try to do everything as much as possible that can be applicable in terms of writing in class. So any project I have is usually sports related. If I had an opinion writing class this year and we had to pick a topic for the second half of the semester, mine was NCAA issues. So trying to keep it focused on sports, I think that's my area of expertise. And I think my grades would reflect that. If you know something and you're well versed in something, then you can write a lot better about it. So that's what I try to do.
Do you have any fear at all of burnout?
I think it's extremely hard to come into something and senior year of high school, go on TV a bunch of times and be, lauded as this new, like Doogie Howser type in the baseball world, and not have at least. There's no way you can't burn out from that, because you're at least a little bit, because you're at what you think of as the top at that point, and you're going on national TV, and then all of a sudden, the story stops being about you and you're just another reporter. But I think as long as you're doing something that you love and you really enjoy doing that and you're passionate about it, which I still am, and I never see myself not being passionate about it, then I don't think it's really possible to burn out and not enjoy it. So I think that's the key to it.
Yeah, the coach and teacher in me wants to ask you about, what do you do to wind down from that?
Wind down from
the baseball. I mean, if at some point, you're going 100 miles an hour with school to baseball to news to writing, is there anything that you're doing to kind of take your mind away from that?
As I said, my life is just wherever the day takes me, wherever the hour takes me, whether it's work or social stuff. If I'm out and if I was at the night before Thanksgiving this year, I was out with some friends at a bar, and we were all. I turned 21 in October, so I can say that legally now. But I was out at a bar, and it was kind of like a high school reunion. Everyone was together, talking and catching up with people. The Diamondbacks and Mariners made a huge trade at like 11:30 at night, and I looked at my phone and I said, "Well, someone else can grab that, or I'll grab it in the morning." It's times like that. I'm going to live in the moment of what I'm doing, and I'm not going to rush home and ruin my experience to write that up. I think it's really important to be able to wind down, have those moments where you're catching up with old friends, and the job can wait. So as I said, whatever I'm focused on in the moment is really going to be my full focus.
When you talk to Jeff and Ken, it sounds like they're giving you networking advice. Do you ever pick their brain on in terms of the next move, or in terms of honing your craft even further?
I think general stuff like honing my craft, how to get better, those kind of things are what I've really learned from them, and they've all been fantastic. As I said, Jeff, Ken, John Heyman, Jerry Krasnick, all those guys. But I think if you really, at the same time, we're intense competitors, and I'm not going to them saying, have you heard this rumor too? Because that either, tips them off and leads them to beating me on a story or something like that. So I really try to be as independent as possible with specific things, but in general, we all realize that this is a very hard job, and there's only a few of us doing it. So I think we all respect each other immensely based on that.
Final question. It sounds like you're living in the moment, and it sounds really exciting, to be honest with you, Chris. My final question is, 10 years from now, I've heard you say you want to be working in baseball. Is there a value for people listening to think about goals, or is it more of an importance to be in the moment and just keep your head down on your work?
I think goals are important, and I think it's tough for me to come at this entire thing because, as I said, senior year was a complete whirlwind, and something where I went from, this is an interesting little hobby I have, never thought of it as a career, to, okay, I'm on TV and there's people noticing, and now I have a career path set for me. And I think in that way. I'm extremely blessed, especially, having parents that were as supportive as mine and still are with everything, and just a great base and a great high school, a great place to grow up here in Central Mass. So I think a lot of factors really played into it. But I think as important as goals are, again, I don't think people should pigeonhole themselves on specific goals, because you really never know where life is going to take you. And I think, there's always a plan and things are going to work out. So I would say goals are something you should set, but don't get too stressed out about reaching them.
I started this project in hopes of helping people get 1% better every day, the law of marginal gains. And with or without baseball, I think people listening definitely did that today. Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time, man.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
That was Chris Cotillo, SB Nation, MLB Daily Dish, and really a lot to learn from someone at his age or any age. Chris is getting after it, getting 1% better a day. Thanks for joining us.